Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Center podcast. I'm Emiliya Zhivotovskaya, your host and founder of the Flourishing Center. We are training the change agents of the world and equipping them with research-based tools for healthy, happy, and successful living. And we're so grateful that you're here.
This episode is a practitioner profile, where we highlight ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things. Each practitioner is a graduate of the Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program from the Flourishing Center. Find out the exciting ways that people are putting the science into practice in their work and how they use positive psychology in their lives with individuals, organizations, and communities to help them thrive.
Thanks for listening, and let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Today with me, I have Shiri Rosenblat joining us from Hoboken, New Jersey. She's an executive coach and positive psychology practitioner and creator of the company Start in Point. Something you might not know about Shiri is that she has some unique passions. Firstly, she believes that watching reruns of Friends is good for your health, which I have to say I might need a positive intervention. Haven't done that in a while. She also believes that coffee is the nectar of life, the sweet nectar of life that keeps us ticking. And she also happens to adore teenagers. She believes that teenage life is an amazing age, and I think that's a beautiful perspective that she offers the world, because sometimes people can think that adolescence is a nightmare and parenting adolescence is a nightmare. And she is a mother of two teens, and the fact that she loves not just her teens but others as well, I think speaks a lot to the sense of adventure and liveliness that Shiri brings into the world. I'm excited for you guys to get to know her and learn more about her work. And let's dive in. Shiri, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so grateful for that, and for this opportunity to talk about the subject that I like the most. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shiri. So tell us, you work as an executive coach and positive psychology practitioner. Tell us more about what that looks like.
So basically I found coaching basically 15 years ago, and positive psychology got implemented into that work, which I believe like coaching is some kind of a theory that we have about the way that we approach clients and working with people. And positive psychology as a science and research gives us different kind of tools that complement each other. So I work with private clients, and I work also with organizations, but I took a lot of my business into working with families and working in schools environment, using coaching skills, working with teenagers and with their parents, and positive psychology techniques as well.
That's beautiful. And tell us more, when you discovered coaching, what were you doing beforehand, and what brought you to this work?
So it's nice because it all comes from this, I think, personal perspective. I was in Israel. I had a master's in psychology counseling, and I used to work with a lot of teenagers in Israel. And we moved to United States about 15 years ago, the whole family. And I was looking for something to do. And I feel that sometimes when you come to a new country, you come from this victimized point of view, like you dragged me here, what am I doing here? I lost the person that I was and my identity. But I was looking to do something, and coaching was pretty much something in the beginning. And I found that certificate program in NYU. And actually, I think it was for myself more than helping others, because it was this new field that offered this perspective that I really enjoyed. So I started that, as I said, 15 years ago, and I've been doing that ever since. And it's such a pleasure to see it as a growing profession, because back in my day, they just needed to figure out even the code of ethics. And in my point of view, I was like, oh my God, this is so perfect, because you're going to work with people on their strength and push them forward, versus only doing offering therapy. And then positive psychology just got thrown into the mix, because all of a sudden you see all this research that shows you what coaching is doing. So I'm very blessed to be part of something that I really believe in, to be from such early in the beginning of it.
That's beautiful, Shiri. And I think that there's possibly people on the line who are curious about being coaches, and possibly people who are listening who are interested in maybe thinking about seeing a coach, what are some of the topics that executive coaching clients come to you with?
Many times, a lot of times what I see, it's that connection between personal life and professional life. Usually I prefer working with coaches that not the organization bring me over because I want to work with the person, but a lot of the time it's that questions about balance and dealing with stress and dealing with human relationship and with other people that you work with. So I created these kind of workshops that are around these ideas of that actually comes from the world of positive psychology, um, such as being mindful about others people's needs, such as what is the story that we tell ourselves in our mind, because each one of us has this kind of a story that we go around. How do you relate to people that work with you from a place that will move you forward? Appreciative inquiry, like David Cooperrider in his work, and how you're focusing on the questions that uplift the organization. And many times there is that other component of self-care, because if you come to a workplace and you're all the time miserable and you don't take care of yourself, then it's definitely going to influence your way of work. And the other thing that I really, really enjoy, and we studied that with you, was about how you view your professional life as a job, as a career, or as a calling. And I see that as something huge, because when people understand where they're coming from, it shifts something in the way that they view what they're doing. And it's always like amazing to see.
Mm. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to work with people through such a breadth of their lived experience. And
Mm-hmm.
the professional life is so largely impacted by our home life, and more now, right? It's hard for people to separate out the two. So if you're unhappy
Mm-hmm.
at work, it's so easy for that to spill out into home life. And if you're unhappy in your home life, it will impact your energy at work and how you show up.
Definitely.
What do you think are some of the obstacles that people face to shifting their behavior when they come to you for coaching?
I think many times people don't believe actually in the change. Even before that, I think sometimes they come to the coaching process as, oh, here's the savior, the knight of the shining armor that is going to save my life and flip it all the way over. And the other notion that when people hear about happiness, they had this like fur idea of, oh, here we go, be living in unicorns and, and the clouds and everything is going to be happy, happy. I personally do believe in unicorns, but that's my issue. But I feel that it's the idea that they realize through the coaching process that it's on them, that they are the drivers, that they are sitting in the seat, that it's their choice how their life are going to be. And that's something that I find sometimes hard and challenging in coaching relationship. But once they get over that thought and they believe that they have the strength, then you see the change. And it's very uplifting to see that, because all of a sudden they realize that they are in control and it's their choice. So the notion of waiting for someone else to do the work for you and realizing that it's not an easy task to change your point of view. It takes time to change an old habit. So the fact that you know what you need to do and you're actually not doing it will not provide the change that you're looking for. But coming, from this point of view of like you're a healthy person, and I love the quote that you use sometimes. It's that everything that you have, you need, and all that you need, you have, or something like that. I find it so powerful because it gives them that resilience and that capacity that they're healthy people that can have control.
Yeah. Yeah, the quote that you're referring to is a Sanskrit word that I love the imagery of, which is the word purna. And purna is
Mm-hmm.
a word that represents fullness, wholeness, and completeness. And it's a word that's used to describe the elements of both the divine and also of all beings. It's like the moment is always whole, the moment is always full, has a sense of completeness. And so if we believe that things are always complete, people are complete, they have within them all that they need, and all that they have, they need. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be a belief system that some people might find challenging to swallow, and others find it really empowering. And I believe that that helps me think about the obstacles that I face from the perspective of how can I use this? How can I learn? I have within me all that I need to get through it, and all that I have in this moment, for some reason, I need it. Thank you
Yes, and
for
it's
highlighting
amazing.
that.
It's so the yin and the yang, and that completion of us of human being. And I also teach classes of intro to psychology for teenagers, and I teach health for 10, 11, and 12 graders. And I see how it's also implemented in the schoolwork and in theory, because teenagers do go through a lot in the way that their brain functions and the way that they view life. And when somebody comes to them and say, I trust you and I believe that you have it, and it's not easy, but you will overcome it, you can see how the impact that it has on them. And you're creating this wiring of the brain that they will take with them for the rest of their lives. So yeah, I'm very blessed.
Mm. So tell us, how did you go about getting this opportunity to teach positive psychology to teenagers in high schools?
So I find it's so interesting because I think that you create your own path in a way, and when you're not afraid to come forward, it's getting definitely out of your comfort zone. And the first thing for me, because it was a challenge because I come from Israel and I have the Israeli accent, and I started teaching a material that I studied in Hebrew, translating it to English, making sure that it will pass well to the students. But I do see working with teenagers, as I said, a calling in my life. Like that's the thing I want to be written, on my grave, that she loved working with teenagers. And as I went through it, it's a small school in Hoboken. It's a private school. We have 200 students ranging from 5th grade to 12th grade. And when I started teaching Intro to Psychology about 12 years ago there, I started talking also about positive psychology, being different kind of research and different kind of material. It was pretty in the beginning. Now, as you know, it's like so much out there. And going through that, and then I got the health class, I said, okay, I need to design something that connects well-being and the sense of flourishing in everything that we do. And I was lucky enough that my principal back then was on board on that because she understood the value of that. And it happened to be that I created this whole program around, I meditate with them. We talk about changing and rewiring the way that they think and dealing with stress. But the most, I think, amazing part of all of this was about 3 years ago that while I was teaching my health class, 10th grade is about relationships. But it's not relationship only romantic relationship. It starts with relationship with yourself. I do with them like the circle of life, the tool that we use in coaching, and we move from that relationship with siblings, and with parents, and towards the end we reach intimacy and we reach relationship with other people and romantic relationship, and I put all the sex ed into that. But the thing was that one of my students 3 years ago approached me and was like, man, like, why aren't you teaching our parents all the things that you're teaching us?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God. So the fact that a student saw it so valuable and was like, can you give them a few of these tools? I think that was a very like uplifting aha moment in my career, basically, in my work.
Yeah, that's
And
huge.
it definitely was. Like I told him, like, I will never forget what you said. And it's through my experience and through my education experience, I always, you grasp things from people that you work with, and there's something that will stick in you. And you don't sometimes even realize the impact that you have about something that you said, and if you implemented that seed, and they take it with them and they grow it and they nourish it the way that they want. And then like a few years ago, a student of mine I was teaching 10 years ago, she tells me that she's like studying psychology. She's taking courses in positive psychology. So you see, oh my God, like you do something and you do it from kindness and from believing in the other person and empathy, and they will take it wherever they want, but you offer them that opportunity. So
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. The fact that you're sharing these skills with teenagers who need them so badly, and yeah, for them to have the impact on them so much that they would say, I want you to teach this to my parents. It's huge.
yeah.
And so what are some of the topics that you feel resonate the strongest with them when you're working with teenagers?
I feel they really like understanding about the brain and how the brain functions, and about addiction. That's something they find really
Mm.
interesting. Um, I find that they love when we talk about stress, about dealing with emotions, because the cognitive component, sometimes it's hard with teenagers. There will be a thought and an action. And many times the thought will lead to the action. And some, unfortunately, I do have some students that use that thought action not in a little bit of destructive way, because you know what teenagers are capable of doing when they're suffering, when they're not feeling good about themselves. So I put the idea of meditation and mindfulness, and it's phenomenal to see the rejection in the beginning and then how they ask for it and then how they ask other teachers to do it in the class, because, you know, it shouldn't be a class once a week. They need to practice it all the time. And you see like their eyes will, can I share a story?
Yeah, of course, please.
So I used to have a few, it was about 5 years ago, I used to have a student that studied psychology, and she used to cut herself. And sometimes before we started the class, we do the loving kindness meditation, which is one of my favorites. And you know that there is the repetition of the mantra there. And she was really, really against it. Like she didn't like it at all. She said, I don't want to do it. And and I said, you know what, let's just give it a try. Even if your brain wanders and takes you to different parts in different ways, that's fine. So, and sometimes when I used to give them tests or exams, I would put something positive in it. So write to me 3 things that you're grateful for, you know, or what was a nice experience or something nice that happened to you when you walked home. 6 months basically after we were doing the loving kindness, every now and then, I gave them a test. She took the test, and I wrote them, write something nice about yourself. And what she chose to write was the mantra of the loving kindness. May I be well, may I be
Mm.
happy, may I be peaceful, may I be loved. And I was
Mm.
like, I'm telling you that and I have goosebumps.
Mm.
And I was, and the cutting was less like, like later on, she left, she went to college, she's fine. We keep in touch every now and then, but you know, that's why I do it.
Mm. Wow, 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 wow.
I know
Yeah.
it's
The power of repetition to start reprogramming the brain, and the
exactly.
power of simplicity. These positive interventions, these affirmations are simple. It's just having the container with which to do it in, and having a health class with a group of students provides that container, that place for them to learn and to practice these things together. That's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. And to have that safe area. And, you know, I do it like with a laugh. And I said, you know, it's my class. Humor me. Let's just give it a try. And getting a little bit stretched and outside of your comfort zone and dealing with the demons sometimes in your brain. And knowing that, as you're saying, there's a container that can hold you and who you are and being authentic. And yeah, it's phenomenal.
Mm. And I know that you use positive psychology quite a bit in your personal life. So you are a
Yeah.
parent of teenagers. You've been through a lot. As you mentioned, you immigrated to this country. You picked up your identity and reinvented yourself. What are some of the things that positive psychology has helped you get through?
So it's so interesting that you say that. So I will share something personal. I moved here, as we said, about 15 years ago. I was married and with 3 kids, and I separated about 3 years ago. And I think through the separation, positive psychology was one of the things that helped me the most. I can see like friends of ours are coming and telling us like, we wish all couples can separate and uncouple the way that you did, because they never seen something like that in their life. And when we went through the separation, I was actually doing another program with Tal Ben Shachar, who later on became a good friend. And it was about relationships. And I remember that I wrote down what I'm looking for in a relationship. And one of the things that positive, and we found out that after so many years, the fact that we can't continue as a couple doesn't mean that we're not continuing as parents. And one of the things that we talked about was I told him that I want him to be happy for the sake of the kids and the family that we created. And I want him to be happy for me for the sake of our kids. So me maintaining his happiness and he maintaining my happiness while we're not together is a huge thing of how we're going to lead our kids through that. And I was pretty lucky to have a partner that agreed with me, although he's not from this field whatsoever. So all of a sudden, people come to me for my advice about how can we, through the hard things that are happening to them, and challenging, because life is challenging and you're going to suffer from separations and people unfortunately dying, but you can do it with grace and dignity and empathy, a lot of compassion to yourself and to the other person that you're going through that with, and communication skills. And that was positive psychology was a huge part of that experience, period.
That's beautiful. And the skills that you feel helped you get through that, as you said, was I love that you started with the empathy and the ability to honor yourself, because I think so often we're not trained as to how to go inward and to know what we need. And so how can you ask somebody else for what you need or communicate your own feelings to someone else if you're not trained in how to first be with yourself?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I heard like this, I was in this conference and John Kabat-Zinn was talking beautiful about mindfulness. And he's saying it's being in the moment by moment, but it's also about awakening. And I did meditation a lot around that period. And I also dealt with my emotions. There's the movie Inside Out that talk about these different kind of emotions that we have. I didn't reject fear and I didn't reject anger or sadness. I compelled them. I brought them all into me from a point of view of compassion for myself. And it was very healing because, it's that yin and yang, like sadness and joy, for example, in the movie, we see they go together. And actually, and this movie is also very impacted from the world of positive psychology. So you bring things together and you go through this healing process, and I journal my emotions and I dealt with them, and he did as well, and I talked with him. So it was this communication of back and forth, and giving time and space for your emotions that's something that definitely positive psychology taught me. But it's like that subtle change, like when you work on muscles, when you go to exercise and you don't see your muscles toned in a second. It takes months. And that's the same thing. The rewiring of my brain, it took time. But when a push came to shove, it all worked. It all fell in.
That's beautiful. And we talk a lot in positive psychology about the importance of self-care. In fact, my model is that self-awareness and knowing what's on your mind, knowing what you need, knowing how you feel, knowing what pushes your buttons, knowing how your body works, how your mind works, what we're wired for, all of that falls into the umbrella of self-awareness. This gives us a sense of self-compassion for ourselves, and the ability to say, it makes sense that I'm triggered about this, or it makes sense that I'm feeling so stressed out, or I'm feeling so depleted. And that self-compassion would hopefully lead us to self-care. And caring for ourselves and for our needs often informs us to have more self-awareness, and it's a beautiful cycle to get caught into. And we also say that self-care is healthcare. So what are some of the self-care practices that support you? Because I would imagine it's very easy for people to just look at you and go, oh, well, that's just Shiri. She's just so optimistic and she has so much energy and she's just a bubble of joy and love and passion. And I can't be like her because she's just wired that way. And yet I know that you do a lot to maintain your well-being. So what are some of those things?
So first of all, definitely. And like when I work with clients, I always say each one of us have a different kind of a number that they want to reach. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, some of us introvert, extrovert, whatever. So each one needs to reach the level that they feel is they equipped and they need and they want. I'm a person that gets my energy from being around people that I love. So being with close friendships and friendships that give me energy, like the ones that I know that are there for me is something that makes me feel very happy. Meditation is a big part of my life. and going back to my teenager kids or teenagers at all, it's one thing to tell them to do something, but when they see you do that thing, like you role model the behavior, that's when you will see the change. So you need to be the person that you want them to be. And you teach by example. So I'm a big fan of that. So I have a 7 years old. She will see me meditate. She will ask what I'm doing. I will explain to her. And as I was joking before about friends, I really believe that giving myself time, 20 minutes to do something that makes me happy or makes me laugh is something that is uplifting. And friends, it's an easy way to do that. I find the practice of doing good really helpful. Like, that's crazy me, but I will be like on the subway and people will be sitting there on their way to work and I will see their faces. So it's very important for me. Like, I will send that emotion of I wish them all well in the cart, not mumbling to myself, but having this kind of like an energy vibe into the cart. I try to do small acts of kindness when I have a chance, and I teach my kids to do that as well. It can be saying good morning or how are you, or buy someone a cup of coffee, asking them what kind of coffee they like. And it's like these small twists that make the change. But it's also to be aware, it's so when you're hungry, try to eat. When you're tired, go have a nap. When you need somebody to uplift you, then tell them. If I'm upset, I can tell, you know what, I need 10 minutes for myself and I will be fine. And I also found, but this is a new experience for me, we adopted a dog about 6 months ago, and I think it's something that makes you feel very, very, very happy, like animals in general.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for giving us such a beautiful example of how kindness is a lens through which you see the world, and it's just sending an intention to do good and to be well in the world, and how just sending the energy of positivity can make an impact. It definitely makes an impact within ourselves, and I believe that energy radiates from our bodies through the ether into them as well. And I know that I use that as an intervention when I need an uplift. Sometimes there are times where I'll kind of see myself walking down the street and I realize that I'm sort of in a neutral, slightly negative mood for no reason. It's just not in a neutral, slightly positive mood. I'm just sort of a little on the downer side. And so I'll just start I'll walk down the street and just in my heart say, I love you to every single person that I pass by. And I try to do it for at least 3 blocks. I love you. I love you. I wish you well. May you have a great day. And just beaming that through my eyes, through my smile, through my heart. And I know I feel better. And yes. I hope that they do too in some way, shape or form. And if they don't, that's okay too. But, it's the effort that we put into
the power of intention.
Yeah. Beautiful. And if there's any tip you'd like to give to our listeners around what they can do to increase their well-being, what would you love to offer?
So I think it's a way there is a really nice saying that positive psychology is about living an optimal life. It's not the most optimistic, it's not pessimistic, it's living in reality. It's living in the here and now. Not fantasizing too much to the future, not reminiscing too much about the past. And I like this idea of the present, and something that you said as well in one of the classes that resonates with me, and I take it with me all the time. It's about other people matter. It's that part of this, consciousness, being part of a greater good kind of humanity. And that's something that people, when you choose a work or a profession or something that you want to do, pick something that you know that you're going to be good at. Not something because you think, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money out of it, or it's an easy, breezy thing to do. Because I think people that are successful are the ones that, first of all, are not afraid to fail, but are all doing something that is really, really meaningful with purpose and calling. And that sense of achievement that you chose the thing that is right for you, that all the elements click. So that's something that I wish everybody to have an experience of life where they do live it for the fullest.
Beautiful, Shiri. Thank you so much. And how can people learn more about your work if they wanted to connect with you?
So they're more than welcome actually to email me. It's Shiri, SHIRI, @ start in-point.com. And they can also find me in Facebook. I post different kind of things on Facebook, and I always in for coffee. Like if somebody says, let's meet for coffee, I'll be here. I'm there. Good coffee.
Because coffee is the nectar of life.
Exactly. Nobody can say otherwise.
Thank you so much, Shiri. I appreciate you.
And thank you so much for inviting me to talk and for inviting me to your world of positive psychology. It's been the best ride ever, and it will continue and carry on. I have a feeling.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day, Shiri.
You too. Warm hugs, my love.
This Practitioner Profile episode is brought to you by the Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program, the world's fastest growing practitioner training with over 15 programs running every year in 5 cities and online internationally. Discover how you too can turn your passion for well-being, science, and helping others into a career where you help people thrive. Learn more about how you can become a certified positive psychology practitioner at getcertifiedinpp.com.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I want to encourage you to tell us, what would you love to hear more about? Is there an area of positive psychology you would love to get some more information on in terms of the research? Give us a shout out at info@theflourishingcenter.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a wonderful flourishing day.